Blog Talk Radio.
Hi, and welcome to Conscious Talk Radio, and I'm your host, Linda Summers, and we've got a great show for you today. Our topic is food freedom, how to end the cycle of binging with Debbie Lichter. And before we bring Debbie on board, I'd like to give you some information about her. Debbie is an empowerment and food addiction coach, speaker, and jewelry designer. For 6 years, Debbie has been working with women worldwide who struggle with food addiction, binge eating, and body obsession. As a health and fitness expert, women's empowerment leader, and recovered food addict, Debbie has conducted over 200 workshops, trainings, and classes on healing, empowerment, spirituality, and food addiction, and has cracked the code to getting free from food addiction in 6 months or less. Her big impact is in her ability to help you be rid of the food issue so you can be more present in your life and have more confidence and help more people. And with that, I'd like to welcome Debbie to the show. Hi, Debbie.
Hi, Linda.
How are you?
I'm so good. And I'm so happy to be here. Yeah, thank you.
Well, we're glad to have you because this, I'm sure, is a topic that you don't really hear much about, and it exists. You know, it's kind of like that, I don't know, it's a topic nobody really ever talks about. So
yeah,
I'm glad
it's kind of like,
here.
Yeah, it's like not sexy. It's not sexy to talk about it. It wasn't sexy, you know, to be a compulsive overeater. Like that was not a sexy time in my life. And it's not fun, and it tends to be something that a lot of people do behind closed doors.
Exactly. Well, and you having the experience of yourself of going through this, which I think is amazing because you've experienced it, so you can help other people how to be free from this.
Well, that's just it, because really, I mean, there's so many experts out there. There's so many people who are focused on food and weight loss and nutrition, and there's therapists out there, and there's treatment centers, and there's so much. But I found that when one food addict speaks with another food addict, and the way I say it is, I'm like, you're my kind of crazy, you know? Like we can kind of talk about stuff and we connect at a different level, and you're like you see yourself in somebody else, and you're like, wow, I'm not alone, and that is so important when it comes to food addiction.
Right. But do you also feel, even though there's a similarity there, but to not get caught up in like feeding each other on that and really rising above that, so to speak?
Right. Well, that's, you know, and this is, I love that you brought that up, Linda, because I think that a lot of people are afraid to talk about this stuff because they kind of feel like, oh, if I really talk about it and get into it, I'm kind of feeding the addiction. I'm kind of staying in the problem. But what I found, and what's actually part of my freedom formula, is that you have to actually start with getting really, really honest and like getting in there, but it actually becomes incredibly liberating. And so it's not about getting in there and staying there. You know, it's not about, like I think that people have this idea of, oh, I'm going to go to a support group, and then I go to the support group and everyone just complains about their own problems, and then it's like we're not really ever getting out of it. And what's important is to actually have a formula to get out of it, to know how to get out of it so that you can safely go into the honest conversation of like, let's really look at what's happening here and let's really connect at this level so that you know you're not alone, so that when I'm able to share with you, hey, this is what it looks like to get free, you can rely on what I'm sharing with you because you know that that makes all the difference. And so getting really honest and really looking at what that stuff is, that's actually really critical in the whole process.
Well, what I love, because I had a breakthrough session with you, is that you don't allow people to go into their stories, because we can get really caught up in our story, and you really nip that in the bud very quickly and really shift that conversation and dive very deep. So you definitely have a very different way of being able to tap into someone, you know, and really dig deep. So why do you feel that most women can't break this binge cycle? And then the other part of that question is what is it that most experts aren't telling us? You mentioned about that as well.
Yeah. I feel like, well, first off, I want to kind of define what I mean by the binge cycle, or what when you and I are talking about the binge cycle, what that might be talking about. Because what I find is that women, and this is all over the world, they know how to eat right. They kind of they know how to get onto the right food or nutrition program, and they have this good patch for a while, and they're eating clean. Maybe they're working out. They're making, they're maybe following a program, a detox, a 21-day, a cleanse, some kind of thing. And then at one point they get a case of the whatevers, or the ethics. And they decide to go for that, that piece of chocolate or that comfort food. And a lot of women that I talk to, they eat healthy food, but they say that they're just eating, and I relate to this, they're just eating more than they need to for their bodies. And so they start to feel guilty. And then they go on down that whole guilty and that shame spiral. And then they resolve themselves even more. They're like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to get back on the wagon. I'm going to be good. And they go do that cleanse. They go do that detox. They go to the 21-day thing, or they go and they're good for a few days or a week. And then it just somehow they find themselves back in that food again. And so this is the cycle, right? And what I find is that women are overly focused on trying to control and moderate their food. They're completely consumed. They're completely consumed with the food, and so it's two things. And I'm going to expand a little bit more on this concept of control a little bit later. But yeah, they have so much information. I think that's the other thing too, is that as an expert, I know that I am working with and talking to women who are educated. They're practically nutrition experts. They have tried every diet. They've gone to every guru. They've done the health spas. They've read the books. They've done the detoxes. They know so much information, and so with all that information, they're trying to control and moderate everything. But what's really missing is that they aren't actually addressing what really makes someone a food addict. It's not just getting your food under control. And what really makes someone a food addict is a much, much bigger conversation that involves the physical aspect, a mental aspect, and a spiritual aspect. And what a lot of programs do out there, it's big. It's really big. And what a lot of programs do out there is that they just want to focus on, say, like your physiology, like, just remove sugar from your diet and you'll be. I talk to women, they know they're supposed to not eat sugar. They know they're not supposed to have gluten. You know what I mean? It's like they know they need to change. They've tried to change, and so we've got to say, okay, what is going on that's deeper? And then it's also this, like some people just focus on the mindset. I need to have better control. I need to have a better willpower. They go to therapy. They talk about their problems. They're trying. It's not like they're not trying, but it's not a complete picture. And so that's really, I think, why a lot of women aren't breaking the binge cycle. Einstein says, no problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it. It's like we're using our mind to try and fix our mind. You know what I mean?
Not going to happen.
It's not going to work. Hello, it's not going to work.
Yeah. I love that. What a great distinction of that, because that's so true. Either we do the physical or the mental, or we even do both, but that still doesn't take care of the problem.
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what about the 3 keys to having a healthy relationship with food?
Yeah. I mean, and what is a healthy relationship, right? I mean, I think that is right? Because we all kind of have a different way of experiencing what a healthy relationship with food is. I would say that a healthy relationship with food as it relates to food addiction or this conversation is not obsessing about food. You know, it's not being so consumed by food, and it's being able to make healthy choices and actually enjoying food. You know, the women I talk to, like, they don't want to be depriving themselves. They love food. They just want a healthy relationship with food. They want to enjoy it. They want to make good choices. They want to feel empowered about their food. So it's really just being free from the addiction, free from the obsession, free from the worry, free from the shame.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What would you say for people that, you know, that they love going to restaurants? So they're really that type of person that goes out to eat all the time because they don't like to cook. What would you say?
Yeah, I mean, and that's actually one of the keys to having a healthy relationship with food is really, you know, I call it making food your spiritual practice. And I know that I'm not talking about eating mindfully or, you know, like burning incense or oming or, you know, any of those things, although those are all wonderful practices that can be an adjunct to you know, the work that I do with women. But when I talk about making food your spiritual practice, I'm talking about the practical, everyday spiritual tools that you can implement on the spot. And so it's important, like you walk into a restaurant or you walk into like, you know, for me it was always the family-style restaurants where there would be, you know, multiple dishes and everyone's like, oh, let's just order a bunch of platters and share. And I'm like, you know, too many choices, too much for me. And so it's actually being armed with, like, how do I really ground and how do I really self-care in this environment in a way that's going to nurture my spirit and help me to feel really grounded so that I don't just like blindly walk into a situation like that and then become like victim to whatever sort of the social norm is, because that's what I hear from women a lot is, well, I didn't want to seem like I was being antisocial when they all brought around the dessert, you know, the cake for that person's birthday. I didn't want to do, you know, they wanted to belong. They wanted to be a part of. They didn't want everyone to be sharing that platter. And they're like, oh, I'm just going to have my own personal portion here. I'm just going to do my own plate. They didn't want that made them feel not a part of. And so it's important to be able to be coached around, okay, how do you go into that situation? And how do you arm yourself with practical spiritual tools? Yeah. Great question.
Because how do you say no? Because you'll be out and they are saying, you know, hey, let's all split something, and you really don't want to because you don't really like all the food, but yet you want to be a part of that. So it is, I've had, you know, been in that position myself, and it's like, oh, man, and I eat that food, and I'm like, oh, that didn't even taste good, you know? So you rob yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's a huge part of it is really not having the confidence to really honor what feels right for you. So yeah.
Which is kind of our next really point of interest is what's the secret to feeling confident and making healthy choices.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, and it really does go into that because, you know, the secret to really feeling confident and making healthy choices is, just like you intuited, it's really being able to learn your body's language, being able to get into your body. Do you know that 97% of women have a negative thought about their body every day? Just of all women. That's just average women. And then when you're looking at women who actually have food addiction, you know, that kind of thing, it's like, it could be well over 100. I mean, a constant thought about negative thoughts about the body. And what tends to happen is that it's very ironic, Linda, because we're so obsessed about our bodies, but we're rarely in our bodies. We're just in our heads. And so we're completely disconnected, and we're obsessing, and we're anxious, and we're trying to fix, and we're trying to control, and we're spinning our wheels. And so there's no way that you can feel confident when you are up in your head and you're reacting and you're trying to kind of operate in that very, very, like, you know, cerebral function. And so what's so important is not just getting into your body because you can get into your body with movement, which is great. I mean, it's beautiful, right? Dance, yoga, all these ways that we have a chance to really, really get into our body and have that embodied experience. But it even goes deeper than that. It's really learning your body's unique language for everything, for the emotions that you feel, for the the subtle sensations that you might feel. What's going on here? When I feel this in my throat, what's going on for me? When I feel this in my stomach, what's happening for me? That you really start to listen to the subtle cues and the language that your body is speaking to you on a constant basis. And what that does for you, the reason why that's so important is because it helps you to build what I call your intuitive guidance system, so that you're able to make your choices from your intuition and from your gut instinct. And it's so incredibly grounding. It's so, so grounding. And so when we get to operate from that, from the inside out place, that's where we feel confident. Because confidence is an inside job. We tend to think, I'll be confident if I get my body to look a certain way, if I reach this goal, if I have the success in my business, all these things. And these are all beautiful external markers. But let's face it. I mean, how many of us have gone up and down the scale? We've been smaller, we've been larger, we've had success, we've had failure, we've had all these things, and you can be in the peak of success and still feel insecure. You can be at your leanest. At the time that I was my leanest, I remember thinking to myself at the time, I'm still miserable. And it was really depressing because I was like, I thought this was it. I thought if I just got the body that I wanted, that I'd be happy and I'd feel good about myself and I'd trust myself. And this isn't it. What is it?
Right.
So really, it's big. It's really, really big. So this is the work that we have an opportunity to do as women to really come into our own internal power. And from that congruency, that's where we naturally make healthy choices. We're naturally aligned with that which is life affirming. It just works. So,
I love that.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah, and I also really want to share, a couple of the other keys I feel like to having a healthy relationship with food. It's so important to get honest. We talked about this a little bit at the beginning of the call, but to really, really to get honest and to learn your truth. Because I think a lot of people are trying to fix something that they actually don't know. They don't know if they have, and they don't really know what it is. And so they don't, they're kind of, they're sort of cutting themselves off, they don't have access to the full solution because they don't even know what the full problem is. And so that's a huge, huge part. And the journey of being honest, let's face it, I mean, gosh, I start out every day asking, spirit, source, God, whatever, to please help me to get honest, because, the ego rebuilds every day, and we have a tendency to live in our own lives. And so it's not just a one-time deal of, I got honest back in 1984, and now my life is different. It's like, it's a daily one-time thing. No. Right. Yeah. It's a daily thing, and and I would say the biggest thing, just to circle back to what we were talking about with trying to control the food, Linda, is that this illusion of control that we have. When I'm doing you mentioned, the Freedom from Food Addiction Clarity calls with women, it's like hands down the number one thing that I hear is this kind of gripping to this feeling of I need to have control. Like I'm trying to control. I feel so out of control, right? Because that is what happens. We feel so out of control. We feel so much shame. We feel so much self-doubt. And all we want is to gain control because we think that that's the answer. But, right?
Yes,
but it's
absolutely.
not, right? I know.
Absolutely. It's all about control. I really do believe that. Absolutely.
It does. It feels that way. We just want to have control. And this is really a core issue for a lot of us, because most of us really are control freaks, and we don't see it that way. Maybe we see it that way. Maybe I speak with many women who overtly see it that way. But even if we don't overtly see it that way, we still are, in our own way. We like the things that we know help us stay safe and stay comfortable, and we like to know what we know, and we like to know how what's going to be around the bend, and we kind of like to know the variables so that we feel safe, right? And so what's really, really remarkable about the formula for getting free from food addiction is that it's not about gaining control. It's actually about learning how to let go. And yeah. Because
you feel like if you let go, you lose something, right?
Right. You said you feel like you lose something.
Yes.
Yeah.
When we think we letting go of something, it's like, oh my gosh, if I let go of this, then I won't have anything, or I won't have anything to replace it. But it's actually gaining, is what I hear you saying. You're really gaining from letting the go.
100%. Because really, what's happening when we're controlling is that life feels like a struggle. Life feels like a struggle, and it's incredibly complex because we have to create a lot of rules. We have to create a lot of we've got to make things very concrete and compartmentalized, and this goes here and this goes here so that I feel safe, so that I can be taken care of. And what we need to move towards to get free, to really get empowered in any area of our life, but definitely to get free from food addiction, because food is one of those things that feels so out of control, and we so want to control. And what we need to move to is this feeling of trust. And with trust, we actually get more simplicity and more ease.
Absolutely.
And so we're gaining. We're actually gaining by letting go. We're actually gaining an easier life, a life of ease, a life of simplicity, a life that flows. All the things that we think that we want, but we're kind of going the wrong direction to get it.
Yeah, absolutely. And what comes up for me, too, when you were talking is about, education around foods, because we think, okay, this food is better than this food, and I don't know. I think there's a lot to be said. I mean, I'm not saying this personally because I don't really know, but you hear people talk about, okay, you can't mix your proteins with your carbs, and so do you also feel it's really important, the combination of foods, and do you feel one food is more important than the other?
Yeah, great question. So I've got two angles that I'm going to answer for that question. The one is that I believe that one person's healthy food is another person's unhealthy food. I mean, there's many foods that would technically be considered, this is a really good superfood, and I put it in my body and I get bloated and I get gassy and I get uncomfortable, and my body's like, no, that doesn't work for me. Or I feel like I eat something, I'm like, whoa, I feel like I've got a brick in my stomach, and somebody else is like, this is the lightest, most refreshing thing I've ever had. So that's where it comes back to really learning what your body responds to. And so that is, that I would say that's like the big meta theme. And then within that, I have found some themes that really, really do work. They work in my life. They work in the lives of the people who I see having a healthy relationship with food in their bodies. And I would definitely say that the sugars and the starches and the things like that, for the most part, those are going to be pretty aggravating to most people. And I really found that for my own body, that when I really moved to more of a high healthy fat diet, which I don't even like to use the word diet, but way of eating, that had that had portions in it, that had portions of protein in it, and that wasn't overly restrictive, but it's just how I kind of swayed where I was getting most of my caloric intake from instead of from starches and from, sugar-based things. I saw a dramatic difference in just my own ability to really have a healthy relationship with food and to not crave. Like, I feel so satiated and sated, and I don't crave. And so that's what works with me. I know that works with other people. But, again, I feel like I've talked to many people who already are on a prescribed high-fat, low-carbohydrate eating plan from maybe a medical professional or from a program that they're doing, but it still doesn't solve the food addiction problem because they now have the plan, but they don't have any ability to stick to the plan.
Exactly. Right.
So,
wow.
Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's one thing that you could share with our listeners that has helped you on your journey? Just the gem that you can think of that really has made a difference in your life? I know there's a lot.
Yes, no, I will tell you right now. Set aside everything you think you know for an open mind and a new experience.
I love that. Wow. That's really to be open to possibility is huge.
Yes, that's it. Just set it all aside. Everything that you have been doing has gotten you to right now. So to go any further, you got to set it aside.
And in order to do that, you need to work with Debbie because she will show you how to do all this. And so really to getting free from food addiction in 6 months or less. So this is all going to be, Yeah, so if you now are you going to be doing freedom formula or freedom calls for people, food freedom calls? I mean, I do. And Linda, I really want to. I mean, this is for the listeners, for your listeners who this really, really resonates with. Like, they really feel, oh my gosh, that's talking to me. I feel like I've been spinning my wheels. I know better. I can't seem to stop the binge cycle on my own. I feel a lot of self-doubt. I feel a lot of shame. I really, really want to support those women because normally my consultation rate is $300 an hour, and I feel very, very called to have a conversation with the women who are like, I really need help. So I would like to extend a Freedom from Food Addiction clarity call to just the first 5 listeners who email me. And what I'll say is, and please in the subject line, if they can just put Conscious Talk Radio with Linda Summers, then I'll know that that's from them, and then they'll get that complimentary. And because you're right. I mean, we've talked about a lot today. We've talked about the tendency to try and control and moderate, and how that's not the full picture, and it's important to fully understand all aspects of the food addiction and really know your truth and learn how to let go, and move to trust, and really how to develop that internal guidance system. I mean, there's a lot of stuff here, and what I don't want to do is just send people away with more information to store in the back of their minds, because that's exactly what I just asked you to set aside, Exactly.
So
exactly. Yes.
So it's like okay, like how do I implement that? How do I implement these tools so that they actually work in my life, so I actually break the cycle and I break that pattern? And you don't know what you don't know. So,
now, can you give them an email address where they can email you? Because I'll have all of this information as well on the video, at the end of the video as well, too. But your email address.
Yeah, sorry, what was the first thing that you asked? Could they do what?
Email address.
I'm sorry, I'm missing that. But they can email me, and I can't hear the other thing you're saying.
You want them to email you, and then in the subject line, put Conscious Talk Radio with Linda Summers. So your email is Debbie, Debbie, Debbie.Lichter, Lichter, @gmail.com. And again, for any other listeners that are listening, this will all be at the end of the video. And thank you so much, Debbie. Really, this is such a huge topic. And I know, having that session with you, that, trust me, anybody who's listening or listens to this video afterwards, that she really does go at such a deep level. It's just not, this take away this food or any of that. It's so much different to have the experience with her. So thank you so much for bringing this to light and to really having this conversation. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's been so wonderful to be here with you, Linda. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, all the listeners out there who joined us today and the ones who will be joining us via YouTube. We thank you. Please be sure to follow, subscribe, comment, and like us. And again, all her information will be on there. And she will take the first 5 people who email her and put Conscious Talk Radio with Linda Summers in the subject line. You can join me next week on October 22nd for my next show, Video Production Tips for Conscious Business Owners with Cindy and Han. So thank you again, Debbie. And, yeah, it was great. I love it. Thank you so much for what you're doing in the world.
Thank you. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.